Hello, church. Welcome to this week's message. My name is Henry Loque. This is God's Feeding Station. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Hey, have I got some career advice for all of you out there? Right? If you're really looking for a change, if you're sick of your old job and there's something new you want to try, you need to go be a soccer coach for youth. Let me tell you, it's so rewarding, especially around tryout time, where you have to make some tough decisions and you kind of lay awake at night worrying about the kids that you may have to cut, and then when you make those cuts, you have parents accusing you of not caring for their kids and failing their kids, and you have parents who think that you lay awake at night for sure, but just dreaming of ways to crush the hopes and dreams of their kids. Let me tell you can't beat it. Sorry, I make it sound really bad. While there are those parents who do think that way, it is in the minority, in the vast minority, but it does it does cause chaos and stress. And so how do we find joy in the midst of chaos? I thought about this a couple of weeks ago when we had snow here at the end of the month of May. We had, I shouldn't say we, my wife had planted our vegetable garden, and I think it was not even a week later, we had snow coming in, temperature was going to drop 40 degrees, and it's like, oh man, we got, so we're out there for like an hour and a half the night before, covering things and trying to, brace things so that, the plants don't break, because, it's going to be a heavy snow, spring snow. So dealing with all of that, and it's like, it's just like kind of one more thing to worry about, one more thing to have to deal with in the midst of everything else in daily life that you have to deal with. And so how do we deal with, how do we find joy in the midst of chaos? How do we deal with adversity? How do we deal with the curveballs that life throws at us, right? Because I told you about the garden thing. The soccer thing can be, as you saw from my opening today, it can be very, very tense, very stressful, very frustrating. You're hoping you're making the right choices for kids. You second guess yourselves at times, but it's like where do you find, in the midst of this tension, where's the out? Where's the blessing? Where's the joy? And it's really interesting because God will provide it if we're willing to lean into Him and trust Him and look for it. Because in the midst of soccer, there are these kids, when you have, I'll say this, when you're in the midst of this, when I'm in the midst of this, like tension, right? The first thing I think of at these points in times is James, right? The book of James 1, beginning at verse 2. Got to get there with my notes here. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But there are times like this where, I'm in the midst of all of this and I think of that and I'm like, James, just bite me, dude. I don't want to hear that right now. It's not helping me. But it is that thing to be steadfast. It is that thing to persevere, right? Because, as I said, there are these blessings should you be looking to God in the midst of all of this, because that's where we are to look, right? Jesus always looked to God in the midst of dealing with the Pharisees and their constant laying of traps for Him, trying to find more reasons to put Him to death. For me, from a soccer perspective, there are kids who excel, who do well, who work really hard and are rewarded for that. I had 5 kids move off. I coached second teams. I had 5 kids move up to the top team at my 2 age groups, 2 on the older age group, 3 on the younger. And just, you celebrate with them and tell them congratulations, and you see how happy they are. And that's a fruit of caring for them and working with them and giving the right tools for them to be successful. And trust me, I have a lot of help with that, with the staff that I have at where I work. But that's a blessing to see that. I had the pleasure I coached a high school team in the fall, and one of the kids I coached last year, she had moved up from the 3rd team, and in a year went from the 3rd team, went through my team, and now she's on the top team. And so she's been on the top team for a year now, and got to see her at tryouts on Thursday. And anybody who knows me knows I like to banter with people and give people a hard time and go back and forth. And it's the same with the kids, on a different level, obviously. But Brooke came in. She's a sophomore in high school. Brooke comes up, and I wasn't supposed to be there, but they had a shortage of coaches, so whatever. But Brooke comes in. She's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, really?" And that was the beginning of this hour and 15-minute long back and forth with her. And at the end of it, it was so fun, and it was fun to be around those kids again. And it was because at the end of it, she knows it's nothing but love, and I got the biggest hug from her. And so it was cool just to hang there and watch her play, because she is such a good player. That's the other thing. That's the rewarding thing. Just to see, that I had just a very little part to play in that, but she's just killing it. She's just killing it. And so that's a blessing, right? She's a blessing from God that God put in my life a couple of years ago, and just have watched her blossom into this really good player. She made second team all conference this year in high school. So it was just a great thing to watch. And it was just fun to be around her again. Another blessing in the midst of this is we're having dinner with our dearest friends tonight. And we're going to get to catch up with them. We're going to spend hours with them. We're going to a really great restaurant with good food. We're going to hang with them, find out how their kids are doing. Their daughter was one I married some years ago. It was such an honor and a blessing to do that. And so, we're going to get to spend time with them. And that's a blessing. That's a blessing from God in the midst of the tension and the chaos. And so, that's a good thing, right? As I said, God will provide these respites in the midst of these trials. And we have to remember Jesus. In Hebrews 12:2, it says, we need to look to Jesus, right? Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Right? The joy that was set before him, the understanding of the joy and the reward, that promise that awaited him by obeying God, being obedient to God. His love for us, being enough for him to suffer the agony and the shame of the cross. Because remember, the cross was not just designed for death, it was designed for shame as well. People were crucified naked. Very shameful and painful way to die. But Jesus endured that for the promise of the reward and the joy that was set before him. That same reward and joy is set before us. In a sense, we don't get to sit at the right hand of God, but we have a promise to partake in the inheritance of the kingdom of God. And so, for us, it's, again, where's the joy? The joy is here. The joy is here, right? The joy is in God. And are we focused on him in the midst of this? Go back to the soccer thing. I remember a couple of days ago having this conversation with my wife about all the stuff that was going on. And we both kind of had that realization of, you know what? Those girls who are supposed to be on my teams will be on my teams. I just have to trust God. Just have to trust God. And that's where the joy is. That's the joy in the midst of chaos, knowing that I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. Whatever kids' lives I'm supposed to have an impact on, he's going to make sure that they're here. And he's going to make sure I have an impact on them if I allow him to work in me and through me. And so the next time we're in the midst of the chaos, and we want to go we want to tell James go take a flying leap with his, consider it all joy. Here's the other thing we have to remember, right? Hebrews 12:7, right? It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful. Yes, it does. Seems painful rather than pleasant. but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. That's what we have to remember. There's a purpose behind everything that happens. And while God is not the puppet master, he is sovereign. And he will bring these things into our lives to grow us, to mature us, and to teach us, you know what? When we hand these things over to God, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be easy. He doesn't promise that it will be easy, but it's going to be okay. And there's going to be fruit on the other side of it. All right, I got to get back to work. I hope you all have a great week. Don't forget, Monday, new series on the broadcast, Teachings of Edith Hopkins in Book of Genesis. Please check that out. I hope you all are doing well. Have a wonderful week. And Lord willing, we'll talk again soon. Got to get back to work. Bye.